How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Emerald City Hockey post-game live. After Kraken's second loss of the season, RJ, back-to-back nights. I thought you promised me that the back-to-backs, the second halves, were going to be different this year.
I thought they were. I thought there was going to be that extra level of focus. And it's been a talking point with the team. But man, they sure looked like they did not have a lot left in the tank tonight, at least for the first couple periods. It showed up in the third for a while, which gives me more questions about the first couple periods. But yeah, this game looked just like the second half of a Kraken back-to-back from last season. They come out sloppy. They don't give a whole lot of effort. When the game's finally out of reach, they do start to get back in it, give that effort a little bit, get some dangerous chances. But at the end of the day, it's too little too late. It just felt too familiar.
Yeah, it did. I mean, there's so many things to talk about with this, right? Obviously, the Kraken now having lost their first two games in regulation. Is it the long road trip? It feels like they've been away forever. Is it the injury list that is, as somebody put it in here already, a mile long? I mean, there's so many things that it could be. We can get to it. Maybe it's Berkeley Catton. It's not Berkeley Catton, but
No.
hockey superstitious people might think that. We're going to get to all of that, of course, here on Post Game Live. But first, got to thank our wonderful sponsor, Queen Anne Beerhall, for sponsoring this. It's been a long road trip, RJ, but the Kraken are this close to being able to come back to Climate Pledge Arena and play some games in front of the home fans. And of course, when they do, those home fans can then, after the game, walk on down the 2 blocks to Queen Anne Beer Hall and enjoy a nice $5 smash burger after watching the Kraken play.
Yeah, it means you're this close to a $5 smash burger. I mean, that sounds fantastic. That'll be great. And then also, I mean, Queen Anne Beer Hall, especially the Hall on Occidental, I hate to bring this up so soon. It's probably too soon. But during that incredible Mariners run they went on, even Game 7 on the broadcast, they were showing Queen Anne Beer Hall and the Hall on Occidental. I thought that was really awesome. We saw it during the Kraken playoff run, but it was cool to see it for the Mariners too.
Yeah, it was. It was. All right, gonna get into things here. B kicking us off. Well, that wasn't an ideal game. It was not, RJ. Kind of back-to-back ones, and I think some interesting things to look at with this. Right, yesterday we talked about you talked about on the post-game debrief. This was the Kraken facing a Philadelphia team that was, for the first time, an effort team. Right, like they were going up against another effort team. Kraken didn't really have great effort last night. They lost that battle and then ultimately lost the game to the Philadelphia Flyers. Tonight, I felt like the Kraken did have that effort, even in the first, and maybe not so much in the second period, but in the first period, it was just that they didn't have the size, RJ, to have it mean anything. There were so many times that I saw guys battling in the offensive zone, wingers on the forecheck, including Berkeley Catton, going up against these defensemen for the Capitals that looked like literal giants compared to who the Kraken had out there on the ice. And they were just not able to win any puck battles, right? Whether it was along the boards or in the middle of the ice or the net front battles to get in front of Thompson's face. Like there was just zero ability for the Kraken to win a battle in this one early on. And I think that affected then the mentality in the second period where a lot of the fight that they had to start the game just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on that. I mean, they were getting out muscled left and right in the first period. And I think the Flyers game was the first time that they faced an effort team that was low on skill. I think this time they faced an effort team that is high on skill and high on size and physicality and all of that. And I think it was just overwhelming for the Kraken. They really just got overwhelmed at times in this one. And I mean, Ben Myers kind of alluded to it during his first intermission interview. He said, just the physicality. We've got to go out and match that. And I don't think this Kraken team is capable of matching that.
Certainly not with guys like, Mason Marchment out, somebody who has good size to him. Jared McCann with the skill, right? Like if you can't match the size and the physicality, maybe you could match on the skill side, but it's hard to do with Jared McCann out. It's also hard to do with Brandon Montour out. The other thing that I really noticed in this one, it was not just that they couldn't win those battles, those puck battles in the neutral zone or in the offensive zone. They just not able to get their breakouts going right now. And I think that really the key thing for that, RJ, is just the fact that they're missing guys on the back end that are able to move the puck and play to that system and move that puck up the ice. They just get bogged down in the defensive zone right now. And even if they're able to get a stick on the puck, they're not always able to get it out of the zone, and then it gets turned over, and then we just see the whole cycle start all over again. But that was another killer for them in this one, and particularly in the second period, where I mean they were just playing for minutes, right? 2 to 3 minutes at a time, stuck in their defensive zone. And then by the time at that point you do get it clear, it's not like you can go and do anything with it. You're just focused on getting a line change.
Exactly. Change it up real quick and just it starts that cycle again. And when you get trapped in it, it's really hard to get out of it. And it usually takes having that extra step of effort, which is all the harder to do on the second half of back-to-backs. I think you could kind of see it as this game went on, where they just didn't have the extra energy to kind of break that cycle. And then the Caps were relentless through the first two periods. And it just, it led to what we saw out there. And
Yeah.
it just was this cycle and it didn't stop.
Yep. Christian, so many players out. Heather, not as bad as it could have been for a team with an injury list a mile long. So there we go. It was Heather that I was referencing earlier. I mean, the injuries, like how much of a factor do you think the injuries are at this point, given that, we're talking about depth piece guys like Freddie Gaudreau, we're talking about Mason Marchment type guy, but also the absence of Brandon Montour and the injury to Jared McCann taking away, like your best goal scorer. How much of these last two games do you think is just because they're missing a lot of guys?
I think injuries certainly are a factor, and I didn't mean to dismiss them in the past when I've talked about how look, this is kind of more closer to normal what you're getting in terms of injury luck. At this point now, when you have, Montour is not an injury, but you have Montour, McCann, and particularly Kakko, like those three are the ones that really stand out to me. No offense to Mason Marchment, but when you're missing all three of those, that is seriously going to affect you, and I think it is starting to really play a big role here. Now, it's something that I may have seen coming a little bit just because the Kraken have been unnaturally healthy the last couple years. At a certain point, it wasn't going to last forever. I saw Zoe blaming me for that on the Discord, by the way. But
I'm fine with that, by the way. Y'all want to blame RJ? It's fine.
No, I'm sure everybody else is fine with that. But yeah, it wasn't going to last forever, and so the Kraken are dealing with some of those things right now. And yeah, it's definitely impacting them. I mean, just look at the lines on paper tonight. Like, tell me that isn't a bottom five forward group in the NHL. No offense to anyone who's out there, but like you compare that to any other forward group in the league, especially a good one like Washington's, and on paper, it's hard to compete.
I was going to say, love Berkeley Catton, love what he's doing in these games, getting into the NHL and the action that he's getting there. Probably shouldn't be playing over 18 minutes a night in your second ever NHL game, right? Like it's one of those things where, we talked about the ice time and wanting to put him in spots where he could be a top six forward. I mean, he is being thrown into a top six forward spot with that ice time.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm actually, given the way the game went, I'm happy that they played him, especially a ton in the third period. He was racking up the ice time. That's the kind of opportunity you want to give a young player in a game that, let's be real, is probably already lost when you're down 3-0. You certainly can't count on a win in that situation. This is the kind of stuff I was hoping they would do a little bit more last season with Shane Wright. And that's the comparison that I used. I put out a tweet at the end of the game. 18-13 of ice time for Berkeley Catton tonight in his second career game. Shane Wright's only hit 18 minutes twice in his 102 game NHL career. You'd like to see more of that stuff last season. That's what I was complaining about, but I won't complain here because you're giving a young player opportunity in a game that's already lost. And I thought he looked like he belonged.
I think he looks like he belongs too, especially on the wing. And I think that is something that is partly there to explain why Berkeley Catton's getting that ice time and maybe Shane Wright wasn't. Like it's a lot easier to give a winger that ice time than a young centerman. But I do think that Berkeley Catton is playing really well right now. It's going to be interesting then when guys start getting healthy and start coming back. I know I had the question on Discord posed to me, I believe also by Zoe. And it was just basically like, at what point do we say that Berkeley Catton is playing well enough that, when other guys start coming back, other guys are forced out of the lineup instead of just Berkeley Catton, right? Like if Jared McCann comes back, they're probably, especially if they continue to lose or if he comes back the next game coming off these two losses, I would think Jared McCann might end up on that line playing where Berkeley Catton's currently playing. But what do you think about then maybe pulling somebody else out of the lineup, RJ, and having Berkeley Catton maybe just shift down the lineup a little bit?
I wouldn't mind seeing what that looks like. I thought he was one of the Kraken's better forwards in the game tonight. But yeah, certainly you're going to want to play like a Jared McCann over him. But I think he's maybe earned that opportunity, and perhaps at the expense of maybe someone like a Ryan Winterton. I know Coach Lambert loves him and the things that he brings, but I don't know. Like, he hasn't impressed me a whole lot the last 2 or 3 games. I wouldn't mind a switch there.
I was going to say he's the one that comes to mind for me as well, and was the name that was thrown around on Discord. There's not a lot of offense coming from Ryan Winterton right now, if any. And while the defense has been solid, I don't think it's been game changing. And certainly right now, the team as a whole is struggling defensively, right, for various reasons. And I think that if you're going to be struggling defensively in this way, you need somebody that can help you, kind of score your way out of that. And Berkeley Catton gives you a much better chance of doing that than Ryan Winterton does. So we'll see if Jared McCann comes back for the game on Thursday. I kind of have my fingers crossed, hoping that happens. I think that could potentially make sense timeline wise, depending on what injury he's dealing with. Of course, we don't know, but I'm kind of hoping that is able to happen, and the Kraken are able to stop this losing skid that they're currently on. Just to stick on the injury front, we've already mentioned him a couple times. Mason Marchment, Virginia here. I was too busy losing my mind at the Mariners game last night. What happened to Marchment? Any word on when McCann will be back?
So I didn't notice anything obvious with Mason Marchment. Did you?
No, I didn't either. I was as surprised as kind of everybody seemed to be when they announced just a little bit before the game too, like an hour and a half before the game, that Mason Marchment was going to be missing it. And then we were all like, well, is he hurt? And then we had to wait basically until pregame for John Forsland to confirm that it was in fact due to injury.
Yeah, I mean, Kraken PR threw that out basically right as the game was starting. I had just put the lineup out and guessing that he was injured when they came out with that and confirmed it. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. Not sure what exactly happened to him. Maybe someone will ask that post game. They're probably not going to give much of an update anyway. And as far as on when McCann's going to be back, again, when it's day to day like that, the team doesn't usually say or give any kind of timeline. They've been on the road, so we haven't been able to go to the practices and stuff, but I haven't seen any reports of him practicing.
I haven't either. So again, hopeful for maybe Thursday, but if they wait until they're back home, it wouldn't surprise me either. We talked about ice time with Berkeley Catton, and we'll talk about Berkeley Catton more, I'm sure, a little bit later. But while we're on the topic of ice time, a couple things in here. Got from Maddie, why Chandler Stevenson exist, and from Zoe, what dirt does Chandler Stevenson have? I need to know. Chandler Stevenson getting 22-11 ice time tonight, RJ, which was second on the team behind only Vince Dunn. He's even outpacing the blue liners now. Look, there's some things that Chandler Stevenson does really well. He can win a defensive zone draw for sure. He can score on bad teams and rack up the points there for sure. Saw that in the Senators game this year, kind of continuing that trend from last year. The assist yesterday against the Flyers. I am starting to wonder this because it feels like every game, RJ, I go and I look at the Kraken line stats over on Money Puck. And again, the Money Puck is not the end all be all. But you look at like the on ice expected goals for versus expected goals against, or you look at on ice goals, shot attempts for versus shot attempts against. And it's insane how weighted in favor of the other team it is whenever Chandler Stevenson's line is out there at 5-on-5. And this is with different wingers. Like we have not, for the most part, it's been like Schwartz, Tolvanen, but it can be with any wingers. The Chandler Stevenson line at 5-on-5 gets caved in. I mean, tonight it was almost 10-1 in the expected goals category, and it was 3-1 in shot attempts in favor of the Capitals when Chandler Stevenson's line was out there. It is one of those things where, I'm curious, and I think this is a question for Lane when he gets back, is just like kind of how much does he look at analytics and advanced stats when he's, working on lineups and working on matchups and things like that. But it is one of those things where I have to think at some point, I know he's a veteran. I know he's close with Lane Lambert. They have a lot of history together, where you just have to look at the actual results and you just go, maybe I should change something here.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of past time for that. We've seen Stevenson do this last year, but again, new coach, new system, all that. He doesn't really look any better this year. And you mentioned all the stats and, 10-1. I mean, shots on goal if you just prefer something like that. It was 6-0 in favor of the Capitals. It's, kind of infinity to 1 there. It just, and we're seeing this every single game, no matter who his line mates are, and yet he's the most common Kraken forward on the ice. I don't know how long this is going to continue. I wouldn't be surprised if it does continue for a long time, though, because I don't know. We've seen this go on before, and coaches, for whatever reason, love to give him more ice time, but especially defensively, it's just rough.
Right. And it's one of those things where, like, when you're just looking at the straight ice time, I think that his ice time numbers are inflated because he's on first
Well,
unit
special
power
teams,
play
yeah.
and he's on the PK. But what concerns me is the fact that the ice time for his line at 5-on-5 is creeping up, up, and up. And we're getting close to the point where it's the most played 5-on-5 line. And that to me is the big concern, right? I still don't understand what he's doing out there on the PK. It doesn't make a lot of sense for a guy who historically the defensive side of the game has been the place where he struggles with the most. It feels like PK units are decided strictly by seniority in this league, and I will never understand why that is the case. I do believe that, in fact, young players can play on the PK, but the 5-on-5 growth is concerning, and maybe some of that is just because Berkeley Catton's been in these last 2 games, so maybe you want to dial back the Matty Beniers line just a little bit while you have a player who's so green out there for you. But that is something that concerns me a lot, is just the 5-on-5 time and everything there. And then
One thing.
go
Sorry, go
for it.
ahead.
No, go
Well,
for
one
it.
thing that does bug me a little bit, though, about Stevenson tonight, it's not consistent. We don't see it every game, but I think there's effort concerns in a game like tonight. And I think about the first goal,
We were going to
that
the
the
same
Kraken
place.
allowed. Okay,
Yep.
we were both going to the same place,
Yep.
but you look at it, and Stevenson gets pushed down in the offensive zone. He does hit the boards a little bit, but he's able to pop back up, and he and Schwartz are both caught behind the play. And so it leads to a 4-on-3 rush for the Capitals. And the Kraken desperately need a 4th player back there because the Caps just have the numbers advantage. And Stevenson is a little bit further back, and I know he's pushed down, but what bugs me is that if you watch the play with him and Schwartz trying to get into the play, one of the players is moving his feet the entire time trying to get back. One of them isn't. And the guy who isn't is Chandler Stevenson. Schwartz is moving his feet the entire time. Stevenson pulls up when he hits about center.
He's
and that bugs
straight-legged,
me.
right? You go
Yeah.
back to that highlight when they have the behind the net cam, and you're seeing like out, and you're looking at Nick Dowd as he gets the puck, and as he shoots and scores on Matt Murray, and he is standing straight-legged. His knees are not bent. He is just coasting. And it's one of those where I don't personally think that even if he was skating full out, he could have potentially gotten there in time. Like, I think it's close, but I could very reasonably say that,
With
he
the way they
wasn't gonna get
executed, he
there.
wouldn't have gotten back there in
Yeah.
time. But again, you don't
But you
know
want it
that.
to look like he was trying to be, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
problem, is that it's the optics of it, right? Things like that happen, right? You get hit into the boards, you go down, it gives the other team the odd man rush. They're able to convert on it quickly before you can recover. That's just hockey. Things like that happen. What you don't want is on the tape is you just stop skating and you just stand up and you're watching the highlight as it's created. That's not what you want on tape, and that's not what fans want to see. That's not what coaches want to see. And those are the plays that, yes, end up bugging me the most. And unfortunately, it does feel like we kind of see them from him a little bit too frequently. All right. I love this from Jason. Mariners fans, I swear this team was playing well while you were gone. It's true. If you were just joining, you did pick a time. And as Lindsay's pointing out, of all the games this week, we picked this one for our once a week post game live. Catton was stellar. He's NHL ready on the wing. I mean, many more people mentioning Catton in here. RJ, we can kind of go back to him. I think that, he's doing a good job. I talked about it on the deep dive yesterday morning. The thing that I wanted out of Berkeley Catton, the thing that I think was, kind of crucial for him, and what he could prove to me and realistically prove to Lane Lambert to continue to get ice time and playing time, is just the effort. Go out there, execute on the forecheck, try to make things happen, be in the right spots, do all of that kind of stuff. And I do think that Berkeley Catton has done that. I think that he is really trying on the effort front and the puck battle front. He is just too small currently right now. It's not even that he's too small, he's too weak right now, or he just lacks the man strength that a lot of guys in the NHL have, that he just doesn't at 19 years of age. I mean, there was one moment towards the end of the first period where he was trying to fight net front and gain ground and get in front of Logan Thompson's face, and he needed to move Chikrin out of the way to do that. And he was behind Chikrin and he was pushing with all of his might. His feet were going, and Chikrin was not even paying attention to him. And he was just planted. Like he
Yeah.
was just not moving. And I was just like, oh, like I see the effort. Like you're doing the right thing, Berkeley Catton. I see the effort. I applaud it, but you're just not there yet. And those are, the things that we talk about the speed of the game, all of that kind of stuff with 19-year-olds in the NHL. That's also a really good example of one of the reasons why coaches don't always put them out there in key moments or give them 18 minutes plus a night or any of those kinds of things, because they're just not strong enough to really go out there and be able to do the little things that you need to be able to do to create, premium scoring chances in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and it's tough as a coach and for a player too, where as a coach you're sending a guy out there. We're in a battle like that. It doesn't matter what he does, he's not going to win it. And so it's a tough kind of reward situation there. But what I did like from Berkeley Catton too is you can see the hockey IQ, the intelligence is absolutely there, whether it's finding little areas in the offensive zone to be open for like a tip, like that tip play he had from the point. I really liked the pass across on kind of the 2-on-1 rush. That was
with Maddie.
fantastic. That with Maddie, the vision there, like that's great. I'm seeing those sparks of skill and everything. The reason he was drafted 8th overall, like those flashes are certainly there. It's not quite consistent enough. He doesn't really have the size and the strength to make it work, in the way that he's hopefully going to be able to in a few years. But I do like those little bits that I'm seeing, and especially in a game like this where you're trailing 3-0, let him out there, right? I mean, maybe, maybe he does generate something special, even if there's, some trade-offs there. But if you're down 3-0, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I do think the offense is there. I think that the game is not too fast for him. Like, I think that I don't see that being the case at all. I do think it's still interesting. What side of the ice is he listed as playing on, RJ?
On the left?
Yeah. Where is he
You're
always?
right.
He's always
On the
the
right.
right. And so I've noticed this going way back to the very first post-draft dev camp that they had with Berkeley Catton is he loves controlled zone entries on the right side of the ice. He wants to enter the zone on the right side of the ice. He wants to view the ice from the right side. He wants to survey the offensive zone from the right side. He wants to be on the right side. He is always on the right side. It does not matter where he is playing. If he's at center, if he's on left wing, he will be on the right side of the ice. And what I think is really interesting is I was very curious with him playing wing. Would that change? Would he be on the left side? Because he's that much further removed than center, right? He's an extra 20 feet to the left. Maybe that changes things. No, it doesn't change anything. Noticed it in the preseason, noticing it through these last 2 games. Every time you see Berkeley Catton, he's on the right half of the offensive zone. It's awkward because he's a lefty. So he's like, he either needs to button hook to then make passes with his forehand, or he needs to pass off his backhand. And he's a very skilled player. He can pass off his backhand. I'm not saying it's an issue, but it's just a very unique trait that I can't think of anybody else, RJ, that could be playing winger on one side and still exclusively be on the other side of the ice every time they're in the offensive zone.
Yeah, you don't see it very often. You see wingers sometimes play on their off wing. I mean, the Kraken just played against one of the best of all time tonight with Alex Ovechkin, who's a righty who plays left wing. Like that's common, but usually you don't see it when they're actually playing on their normal handedness wing.
Right. Ovechkin's not playing on the left side, listed at right wing.
Yeah. Lindsay, hey, Catton's just like me, a lefty that plays right wing. Me too. That's I also play on the right side. I'm a lefty. Like I understand that. Like I like being over there because it opens up so much. If you kind of get on your forehand and see the vision, and you can kind of cut to the middle, opens up a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it does. It's just that at what point do we just what point does Lane Lambert just put him on the right side? Right? Like that's the thing,
especially with how crowded the left side is for the Kraken. Of course, they're missing Marchment, they're missing McCann, so it's different in this situation. But if everybody's healthy, I'd feel fine putting him on the right side. I know that's a conundrum that they had. Like when we were going into the season, looking at the lineup, we're like, man, they're so heavy on the left side. Where do you even put Berkeley Catton at wing? Put him on right wing. I've seen enough.
Yeah, I think he should just be put on the right side because I do think that as well as he's playing and as well as that line is continuing to play with Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle, it does create an awkward dynamic where you can tell Jordan Eberle doesn't always know where he should be because all of a sudden Berkeley Catton is playing essentially where Jordan Eberle is supposed to be playing. And I feel like it sometimes leads to awkward spacing in the offensive zone where the passing lanes that the team is looking for just kind of aren't there, in part because they're overloaded to only one side of the ice. And I think it also does make it a little bit easier for the defense to kind of deal with that. It ends up funneling everything up towards the point, right? And that's why we're seeing so many point shots, particularly when that line is out there. It's because they're just so overloaded to one side because Berkeley just his natural tendency, and it's been this way since he was drafted, is to be over there on that right side. So it's just like an interesting thing. I don't know that I've ever really seen that before from anybody else, not to the extent that Berkeley kind of takes it. So I wanted to mention that because if he's in the lineup again on Thursday, I promise you, everybody, you're going to notice it now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I'm thinking about all the highlights that I can think of with Berkeley, including his first career point, he's over
Yeah.
on that right side. Now, Dylan, I hate to go back to a Chandler Stevenson related thing,
Okay.
but there's a question that we have in chat from Mason that he's got a lot of conversation going on toward the bottom of chat. So I was curious your take on it and how much of an issue you think it is. But Mason asked, what does it say to the young players that the laziest person on the team leads the forwards in ice time, referring to Chandler Stevenson there? I'm curious your take on that. I mean, and also I think I was gonna say, is he the laziest player on the team? I don't know that it's like obvious. But
Yeah.
anyway, like, does it send a message to the younger players? Because I look at like Berkeley Catton being rewarded here tonight, and like if I'm Berkeley Catton, I'm not thinking about Chandler Stevenson getting as much ice time as he did because I worked hard and I got my opportunity. If I'm Ryan Winterton and I'm on this roster and getting the opportunities that he's gotten, I'm not really thinking about Chandler Stevenson. I guess I'm like also attached to Chandler Stevenson for a time, but like it doesn't, I don't know. Shane Wright is the only player who I would think this might send a really negative message to.
Again, it is one of those things where I think like if you're a center, like Shane is, unlike say Catton or Yanni Newman, who got a lot more ice time than he's been getting today, in part because of the power play opportunities he's now seeing. I think it's a very different thing when you're talking about the most key position in all of hockey, right? When you're talking about that centerman role and you're somebody like Shane Wright who can go out there and do everything the right way and you are hustling and you pride yourself on a two-way game, and then there's a guy out there that is struggling or maybe doesn't give effort on a play that results in a goal against, that's the only person I could think of who really realistically should even be thinking that way, if at all. I don't think it's something that necessarily happens. I don't think it's something that would happen this early in the season for sure. I think that that's something that you could maybe look at the tail end of last year, where if you're Shane Wright and what was he, top 5 in the National Hockey League in points per 60, and you're just like, what the heck do I have to do to get an opportunity here? And the season's already over essentially for your team, and then you have a guy out there, making non-hustle plays like he has been known to do, then I think that you can start like having those conversations. But I think for the most part, for the young guys, especially the wingers, you're not really thinking that way. I am also hesitant to just like call anybody who's in the National Hockey League lazy. Like I don't think that that's apt for really anybody. But it is one of those things where we have seen a lot of plays that have looked like that play tonight from Chandler Stevenson in the past, where his legs just aren't moving. And again, it's something that I notice and I, as a coach, would want to, step in, but it would be the conversation you have with that player. Like it's not, I don't know that it's that big a thing for the young guys.
Yeah, if you're a young guy, on the team and you're thinking about that and concerned about that, your head should probably be elsewhere.
Yeah. Like there's other stuff, trust me, for any of these young guys, there's a lot of other things that they, need to be focusing on and focused on learning and incorporating into their games. And there are plenty of mistakes and things that they make throughout the course of these games too, that are just not maybe as obvious as when that happens.
And it's the kind of answer that any player would give you when asked about any of the lineup stuff. They'd be like, look, that stuff's over my head. That's for the coach to decide. That's not on me. I just do what I can control. Like ask any player. That's what they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. Now, like Lane Lambert should be thinking about those things, but the player shouldn't be.
Yeah. Duthin here with the super chat. Appreciate it, Duthin. Thank you very much. Thanks for the post game live. Love hearing the analysis from you and the community. Do you think Gru or Murray heads to Coachella in the next week or 3? I mean, this was the next conversation naturally to have after this one, RJ. We've seen Matt Murray get a start now. We've seen Philip Grubauer get a start. We've seen Grubauer come in relief duty yesterday. And we're seeing the injuries pile up for the Kraken and their need of just extra bodies, with them bringing up Ben Myers today and him slotting in the 4C spot tonight. I mean, you didn't really want to have the conversation yesterday on the deep dive, but is it with even another injury on the books, is it time to talk about this now? Do the Kraken have to make a decision, and should they send somebody down to CV?
You know what? I think we'll see how long Marchment's out. I mean, the Marchment McCann things are such new developments. I feel like this team still has that instinct of not wanting to make a move or make a decision until they absolutely have to and need the bodies. But when you're on a road trip like this and the road trip's not over and you don't have any extras, really, I mean, your only healthy extra at any position was Joey Decord tonight. That can be a problem. And so you might need to make that decision because I think you're going to want an extra player around somewhere. And so, if Marchment and McCann are out longer than the next game, I think we will see a decision made there. As for which goalie it should be, though, I think that's the more interesting conversation about who gets sent down, because you look at just the last, couple games each one has played, and I don't know that there's a clear, obvious winner to this backup goalie competition. I think both goalies had flawed games, but with some upside in places. And I think the most complicated was tonight, where you had Matt Murray. He gave up one on the power play that was certainly soft, that shot from Chikrin.
Yep.
You need a save there. You absolutely need a save there. No excuse for that one. NHL goalie needs to stop it. And then you had the other one too that I felt like, okay, maybe should stop that puck on the Leonard goal. Like you want to save there. You're not counting on it. It's a bad turnover, but you kind of want to save that. So it's like a goal and a half of soft goals. But then the chances that Washington was piling up, it's amazing they did not score 5 or 6 on Matt Murray. He made some other big saves elsewhere to keep the Kraken in the game. And so it's hard to judge. It is a quality start for him, according to Money Puck. Allows 3.67 expected goals from Washington. So it is a quality start. Although, we know Grubauer didn't have the best game, looked better maybe numbers wise on paper, but that tying goal was brutal. So I don't think either of them has run away with it.
Right. It really felt like that Chikrin goal in this one was, flashing back to the Ottawa game with Philip Grubauer. And what was it that we talked about after that Ottawa game? Matt Murray probably makes that save, right? It hits him, finds a way for it to hit him. Matt Murray didn't find a way for this for Chikrin's shot to hit him. And I genuinely thought that those would be the kinds of goals that, Grubauer struggles with. Matt Murray's not going to struggle with those. And yet he struggled with it tonight, and it was a problem for him. And so I think that, yes, if you are the Kraken, you are probably, going with this 3 goalies, rotation and strategy. Now that they've both had starts and they've been around, you're probably hoping that somebody would have separated themselves from the other and helped make this decision easier. And it just hasn't happened. And I don't know what the answer is now, because like Gru looked pretty decent last night coming in relief duty. I thought that he didn't look terrible outside of the one opportunity in the Ottawa game. Matt Murray kind of looked shaky in this one, but also made a ton of key saves and kept the Kraken in tonight's game longer than they probably should have been in the first period. It's a really tough one. Like I would lean towards Grubauer just because you don't have to worry about anybody grabbing him off waivers, but that's also kind of like a lame reason to say like, oh, you lost the battle for the backup job because your contract's bad.
Right. For a team that's really been preaching accountability, you don't want to decide it on that. And that's where I'm struggling too, is because I think body of work, just, in the one start each and then Grubauer's relief appearance, I give Grubauer the slight edge.
I
don't
too.
know. I just feel slightly less nervous. I can't believe I'm saying that. I feel slightly less nervous when he's in the net. And so I'd give him a slight edge. But then you have the waivers thing. And like, what if you send Matt Murray down and he gets claimed? Are you ready to deal with that then? Because you've got Grubauer and no other backup plan now.
Mhm.
Is that something you're prepared to deal with? I don't know. That scares me more. So,
Me too. Yeah,
which is another reason I think now that I think about it, like, they're going to try and avoid that
they are.
unless they absolutely need a body to just have enough players to play. They're not going to play with 17 skaters, but I don't know. I think they're going to try and avoid that at all cost.
I really think
Byron
they're
says,
just
"Whoa." I
I
know
know.
it's weird.
I was gonna say, everybody clip that. Save it for later. I really think that it's one of those things where, yeah, they are just trying to get through the road trip right now. They're just gonna try to get through this Winnipeg game and then figure it out and hope that Marchman comes back, McCann comes back, Montour comes back. Somebody's able to come back and kind of fix things once they get home. It's just been a really tough. It's turned into a really tough road trip. Boy, the difference that a weekend could make. Went from being like, this is an incredible road trip. This is how you start off the season. You're picking up points in every game you play. You're also picking up wins against a team like Toronto, to you drop both of these and, not to go full like sports talk radio on everybody, but is it time to freak out, RJ? They have lost now in the last 2 days a third of their season's games. Just losses, straight up losses, no points. Two pointless games back to back. That is a third of their season. 33%. No points in the standings, RJ.
With that brilliant sports talk radio framing, because I'm panicking. I
Are you
don't even know what I'm panicking about, but I'm panicking.
Yes. Oh man. That's what it would sound like in Toronto right now. Like, that would be all of the talk would just be about that.
But I think one key difference is in Toronto, they actually have some expectations. I mean, look, this is a team that, like, from the beginning, no one set any expectations. The entire goal is not to be really bad. The entire goal is just to be somewhat in a conversation where the season's not over by the new year. And like, it's not time to panic about that. Like, I don't think they've done anything that would suggest to me they're going to fall short of that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not, in that sense, I'm not worried.
Yeah. Yeah. Jake Newman's still looking dangerous on the power play. Positives. Yanni Newman does look fantastic on the power play. I thought they were maybe it's kind of crazy because they were telegraphing pretty hard on that third period power play that they just were wanting to feed his one-timer. Washington knew that the Kraken wanted to feed his one-timer, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, that's how you have a special shot, is when the other team knows that you're going to get the puck and you're still able to get it past all the defensemen in the way, and you're able to get it towards the goalie, and the goalie still struggles with it, right? Like, Thompson was not able to make clean saves on those shots from Yanni Newman, the ones that actually ended up on net.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that makes me go, okay, we already knew this. We've already been begging for him to be on the power play and for the power play to run through him anyway. So it's not so much like us, but if I was anybody else watching this game, I would be like, that is a shot that is special. That's a shot that is unique and belongs, probably not fully in the conversation with, but you can start looking at it and going like, hey, in a couple years, as he continues to develop, is this the next guy that has that one-timer that is just that elite and automatic, and like a Steven Stamkos or an Alex Ovechkin, where a power play can run through it and the entire world can know it's coming and it just doesn't matter?
Yeah, it's a special kind of weapon that teams can have. And it's funny you mentioned that concept. Like, they know it's coming, but the goalie still has trouble with it. When they just played a game against the Washington Capitals, and I mean, of course, they've been the epitome of that concept, right? And so, yeah, we're starting to see, certainly a lesser version, but a version of that with Yanni Newman, as Jake says, baby Ovi. But it's a great weapon for a power play to have. I'm worried about when McCann comes back, if they just take him off the power play or whatever. But I think Newman, he's shown enough with that shot and how dangerous it is, how they can load it up. You have to find a way to keep him on one of the two units, right? Right?
I would think so. Like, it
doesn't have to even be in McCann's play, but Mason Marchment.
Yeah.
Like, Marchment's the other guy in that spot. And we'll see how long he's out for, but come on.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I understand them, and we talked about it on the deep dive yesterday. I love the change of having Jared McCann in a one-timer spot instead of back over on the other side of things. Like, I think that that's fine. So when McCann comes back, him stepping in to a spot on the power play, I have no problem with. I know everybody for years has been clamoring for the Tolvanen one-timer. Yanni Newman's is just better. I'm sorry.
It
I love
is.
Tolvanen. I love his one-timer. Those goals that he scored in the first games he played with the franchise were fantastic, but also he has not scored on a one-timer on a power play in a very long time, right? That was like 4 years ago. So I think that at some point, like Yanni Newman's one-timer it's not just better. I would argue that it's substantially better than Ellie Tolvanen's. I'd argue it's better than Jared McCann's. And
Yeah.
I think that you just have to use the best weapon that you have out there. And so I think that, yes, if McCann's going to slot back in on the top unit power play, then Yanni Newman needs to be in that one-timer trigger man role on the second unit. And even if that means bumping Tolvanen off of that, I think that you just have to do it after what we've seen from him in these last couple games.
Yeah, completely agree. And as for McCann, I can understand that because it's not just the one timer; it's also the
Yeah.
shot from a stationary position. It's the playmaking
Mhm.
ability. Like McCann brings a more well rounded package to that spot on the
Definitely.
power play. So I don't have an issue with that. But Newman needs to be on one of those two units.
Yeah. And I know that might be controversial, but it's got to happen. Stratic, which out of lineup player are the Kraken missing the most? Jen immediately saying Montour. It's tough between him and Jared McCann.
Yeah, I think it's clearly one of those two, but I
Yeah.
would go with Montour.
I think I would go with Montour too, just because we're seeing it in both yesterday's game against the Flyers and tonight. Those sequences where the Kraken cannot get out of their own zone, Brandon Montour gets them out of their own zone. It's
Yeah,
what he
and it
does.
can often do it by himself.
Yeah. He is like the one man breakout machine. It is pretty great to see that from him. Let's see here. Is there anything food related I could do to help us all feel better? I have recipes I could share from Wisconsin Kraken fan. I know I've missing the food questions on Discord during the games there. Let's
Well,
see.
for the next one, got to have some intermission stuff loaded up for our live game commentary.
Yes, definitely. Definitely don't forget to get to do that. James asking, with the cap rising, is Stevenson's contract even worth trying to trade, even if we retain a little bit at some point?
If there's a team that would take it, sure. I'd be skeptical that there are really teams out there that would want him at anywhere near his current cap hit. I just think you'd have a problem finding a taker unless you attach a bunch of assets to it.
Yeah, and Gabriel asking, can he waive his no trade if he decides he wants to move? Yeah, player can absolutely waive their no trade, no move clause whenever. We see it fairly frequently, I would
Yeah.
say. Players will waive it to get moved. Really, the issue is not the money, it's the term,
Yes.
right? Like
Because
that's what teams wouldn't want to take on.
yeah, any acquiring team would be on the hook for another 5 years. And if he's already at this level right now, and he's already, past 30 years old, what does that contract look like in 3 to 4 years? It could be
Yeah.
pretty ugly.
Yeah. Edward with the super chat, appreciate it. Edward, not the best effort by the Kraken tonight, but RJ and Dylan given their full effort as per usual. This is why we love ECH. Thanks, guys. You're very welcome, Edward, and thank you very much for the super chat there. Just to finish up on the contract talk there with Stevenson and Cheryl asking, would San Jose or Chicago be interested just to stay above the cap floor? I mean, I think that's something that they would have been interested in if he was a free agent, but I don't know about in a trade.
No, and certainly not with the term on this contract, as we mentioned, because it's going to go into years where they want to be competitive. And also, as Viren says, the Sharks have a ton of dead cap. They're fine. What you can do is just acquire a contract that would be on LTIR otherwise, like a Carey Price. The Sharks have his contract. That's 10.5 mil toward getting the cap floor. Easy peasy. You don't need to bring in a player like Stevenson who, you're actually having to pay and he's, playing for you.
Yeah. Olivia, obviously the room is tired, but I think it's interesting how all of the guys we brought in for culture this offseason and in the past are all of the guys currently out right now when the team looks tired. I mean, it is interesting, right? Like Brandon Montour probably first and foremost needs to be talked about as culture guy. That was certainly, part of why the Kraken brought him in last year, and certainly what you and I and really everybody has seen he's brought to this team. And then this offseason, right? Mason Marchment was supposed to bring a lot of things to the Kraken, and I do think he was bringing just about everything that he was promised to bring, including the questionable penalties and running of goaltenders. But it is interesting, yeah, that all those guys are kind of missing in the lineup right now. And even like a Jared McCann, somebody who maybe isn't the most vocal leader, but is certainly a guy who likes to lead by example and working hard.
Yeah, Freddie Gaudreau there too. I mean,
Yep.
Capo Caco even. Like I
Yeah.
love the work ethic from him since he's got here. So it's a tough go with the injuries, especially given who specifically is out.
Hmm.
And I like this question from Zoe though. What makes Montour's breakouts different from Dunn or Evans? Why missing him specifically? I mean, I know you're going to have a fantastic answer on this, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is that with Dunn and Evans, or Dunn specifically, it feels like he will try and pass the puck out of the zone quickly and do quick passes, whereas Montour often skates it himself.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Montour is such an explosive skater. He has such great acceleration, and his ability to get up to speed is able to catch the other team off guard. He's able to just kind of blow past whatever forecheck the other team has, and all of a sudden the play is moving against them, and they're back on their heels. But yeah, he's not like relying on trying to pass along the boards or pass up the middle, something that could potentially go wrong or get intercepted by the other team. I mean, so many teams just know, okay, defenseman down low has the puck. Where should I be based on where he is? If he's anywhere close to the boards, I'm just throwing myself at the boards basically to stop the clear out attempt there. Brandon Montour doesn't leave it up to chance. He just does it himself. And that's why we see so many like controlled zone entries into the offensive zone from Brandon Montour. We see him running plays and making plays through the neutral zone, helping feed that rush. He really just kind of handles that stuff himself in a way that Vince Dunn doesn't, or Riker Evans, or any of those other guys kind of do. And so that's the big thing, is just his skating and what that allows him to do. And then the puck handling skills to hold on to the puck, because he usually has to make at least one guy miss on his way out of the defensive zone, and he's able to do it pretty cleanly and seemingly low effort.
Yeah, he makes it look a lot easier than it is, and you'll notice that when you see other defensemen try to do a similar thing, and often get the puck stripped from them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it is a good question, because it is, he does make a big difference there, and it is because of that rush ability that he has there. Let's see here. Mason, for what it's worth, I would think twice about blocking a Yanni shot. Yeah, I would probably do that too. Depends on how much pads I was in. I think it would be really cool to be in goalie gear
I was
and
gonna say,
face a
Dylan,
one-timer from him.
put you in NHL goalie gear. If that Yanni Newman shot is actually coming at you, you're gonna duck and get out of the way.
I mean, I'm
Well, actually,
definitely
no,
not
you're not gonna be able
stopping
to
it.
react fast. You're not gonna be able to react
That's
fast enough.
that's that's
No, you'll
literally
see
it.
the
Like,
wind up, and you'll kind of dive out of the way.
yeah,
I
I
think when
think
that is the reality of that situation actually hit
I
you.
would I would flinch for sure. I don't know that I dive out of the way, but like, am I turtling my head down into the giant shoulder pads? Yeah, like that's pretty normal, I think. But I do think, like, I do want to, like, at like ice level, see how fast that shot is, right? Like, I do think it would be an experience to appreciate it, just to be on like the other end. Like, I do think that would be cool.
I understand that feeling, because especially as we're like right behind the glass as the Kraken are shooting sometimes at practice. I would love to be out
You
there
mean when they're
goalie gear.
specifically head targeting us with their shots? It
Yes,
always
no,
feels that
they
way.
do that. Oh yeah,
They
they
definitely
totally
do
do that.
that.
But no, I understand that feeling. But for a Newman shot, there's like a couple guys where I'm just like, no, that's too much. I want to appreciate a shot from, like, Matty Beniers or Chandler Stevenson or something. I can appreciate that just fine. The Newman one actually scares me.
Yeah. All right. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, am I forgetting to mention that I'll be like Goldberg tied into the net, so I can't leave.
Okay. Lindsay says NHL Edge says Yanni has the hardest shot speed of all NHL games tonight, 94.41 miles per hour. That is not surprising to me. Good pull there, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's not higher, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
And
I
then,
guess he didn't
yeah,
get clean on any of them.
yeah. Well, and then Zoe has a follow up question though on the Montour thing.
Yeah.
Is Montour the only one who can do it, or is it just his style being different? I.e., is that something that can be coached?
It is something that can be coached, but realistically, it just comes down to players being special enough to do it. Like, don't get me wrong. Does Vince Dunn think about doing that? Yeah, I'm sure he thinks about doing that, but doing it at the NHL level is different. And that's the kind of thing that, like, back in the junior days, was Vince Dunn doing stuff like that? Of course he was. But doing it at the NHL level is just so different. And that's why when we see and when we talk about like the top defensemen in the game today, they are the defensemen that are able to do that, right? Like what makes Cale Makar special? Obviously lots of things, but the number one thing is his ability to skate with the puck on his stick and just flip the ice seemingly instantly once he collects the puck, right? Quinn Hughes, what makes him special? It's his ability to flip the ice once he has the puck. And I'm not saying that Brandon Montour is at their level, but he is able to do what makes them the most special players out there, right? And I think that that is something that only a handful of humans on the planet can kind of do.
Yeah, at the highest level too, it takes a certain amount of skill and just having that ability that like I mean, I think of, like Connor McDavid can just weave through guys at the NHL level the way we don't see anybody else do. I swear you put John Hayden in the ECHL and he could do the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He has that kind of skill, but it's just at the highest level. It's so hard.
Yeah, but there is something to defensemen that can essentially just flip a possession, like right on its head. And I think that Brandon Montour is capable of doing it at the NHL level. It's just that it's slower and clunkier than say Cale Makar. Which nothing wrong with that. Like
Yeah. Who
zero
isn't?
wrong.
Yeah.
This is not a criticism of Brandon Montour at all. But like that's basically what I kind of view it as myself.
Yeah.
Going back to the NHL Edge thing, just so everybody knows, if you have the NHL app on your phone, it is really cool how they've incorporated Edge into things. If you go to the stat page, and it'll give you like the hardest shot of the night, it'll give you where all the goals have been scored that day on a little rink, and you can see the heat map of where all the goals have been scored. And then at the end of the evening, it will create a highlight video that is just all of the goals from today. And that has been a lot of fun to watch at the end of the day when I'm lying down to go to sleep at night. Just watch all the goals from the day. Like it's nice. I don't know why the NHL, took so long that maybe have something like this, but it's pretty great.
Well, I didn't even know about that, so I'm going to start taking advantage of that. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
It's just a fun way to catch up. They do it really quick. Like there's not a lot of lead up. There's no replays of the goal or anything. So some nights it's like a 4-minute video, but you're seeing like 25 goals, and it's just like, oh, just right into my veins. Let's go.
Yep. Lindsay, unfortunately, Dylan is correct. You have to give the NHL props for the great app features.
You do. Now you could also, should the app work all of the time? Probably. Does it? Definitely not. But they are trying, and they are improving it, and I will acknowledge that for them. Let's see here. Kylie, it's crazy how quickly people change from praising the team to poo-pooing them. Do these injuries not factor in then? I mean, we talked about it earlier. It definitely factors in. Brandon Montour not being there to help flip the ice absolutely factors in. Jared McCann not being there for, the power play and what he brings there with his dynamic abilities, or even at 5-on-5 and being able to maybe handle certain situations that Berkeley Catton kind of can't right now because he's just not strong enough, like I mentioned earlier. Just being able to battle net front and things like that Catton can't quite do, but Jared McCann can, just because he's older and stronger. The injuries absolutely are factoring in to what this team, why this team has been struggling these last 2 games.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a team that even when everyone's healthy is kind of light on talent rather compared to their opponents, and injuries are only going to make that problem worse. It just means you have to work harder and harder to even be able to stay in a game. And, it's tough to do that over 82 games or even over a long road trip like this. And so I think the effort in the last 2 games hasn't been at the level it was previously, and the injuries factor in a little there. I think both can be true.
Yeah. I think effort was, it was better to start tonight. I don't know where it went in the second period. That's
the thing. Like the second period effort,
one
and
shot
also,
in the second was rough.
You're against a team that's physically punishing you the way Washington is. That can mess with you.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting kind of previewing the next game, RJ, with Winnipeg. Almost said Windsor. Yeah, when the Kraken face the Windsor Spitfires, RJ, do you think they're going to be able to outwork them and outmuscle them? I do.
They better be. I don't know. What do you think, Fuji?
Liam Greentree will put up a fight. Liam Greentree will put up a fight. But other than that, I think they should be able to do that. Against Winnipeg, I think it was Cheryl earlier who kind of asked the question of basically like, Winnipeg's kind of a high skill and high effort team. Like, how are they going to do against a team like that? And I mean, they're definitely a high skill team. The skill has slowly been like atrophying away from them off season after off season. But they are a team that does go out there and tries hard, RJ. They understand how to play in front of their goaltender should Hellebuck be the guy in net for them in that game. Like, it is kind of a brutal game to go into after these last 2 and to finish out this road trip. Like, I do think if they were to drop that one, I'm looking for effort, but like if it doesn't all work out for you the way it did at the beginning of the road trip, after the injuries, after being on the road for 12 days, all of that stuff, I'll understand.
Yeah, I will too. Although this one feels like maybe a Toronto type matchup where again Winnipeg's going to have the skill and talent advantage for sure. But in the past, I always think of these games with Winnipeg. It feels like it's a 4-3 overtime loss like every single
Mhm.
time for the Kraken. They have historically played them pretty tough. That might be different with a Lane Lambert team because it's so different stylistically, but feels like they've always been able to hang with them. And so I'm curious to see if that continues. Also, just every time I'm watching him in the regular season, Connor Hellebuck's just not very good.
Yeah.
So, we'll see if that's a factor. But like on the one hand, my expectations are low just because of the headwinds the Kraken are facing, especially if everyone who was out tonight is still out for that game. But I feel like they still have a chance. Just
I
they played them close historically.
Yeah, I do think there's going to be an element of what we talked about a little bit on the deep dive of like Winnipeg looking at that game and then maybe looking at their schedule around it and being like, maybe that's the one we don't like enter with the same mentality, right? Like, I do think it's still early enough in the season that the Kraken can, take advantage of teams maybe not viewing them fully as a threat. Certainly coming off these last two games, I know they started off very hot and teams took notice, and it was cool to see like Allison Lucan on the sheet with Jeff Merrick and the Kraken kind of getting some national awareness. But I think that it's one of those things where I could easily see the Jets maybe not walking into the game with the mindset of needing to work as hard as they're going to need to work,
Yeah.
right?
And it is game one of a back to back, as Lindsay points out. And they did only beat the Flames 2-1 in their last game. So, we'll see. There's definitely, and they play Calgary again on the second half of that back to back. So, I mean, there are definitely reasons you could look past Seattle on that schedule.
Yeah, so we'll see, and obviously hope to see lots of you watching the games with us over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, as that'll be our live game commentary for the month of October. So I am looking forward to that game. But yeah, as far as a lot of things, I think it's just fingers crossed that somebody's healthy enough to return to the lineup
Yeah, just
too.
hope for health at this point because that's going to help quite a bit. Anyone that they can get back is going to help a lot. So, reasons for optimism there. I mean, they're missing a lot of guys still, and just one or two players healthy, I think would make a huge difference.
I think it makes a big difference too. Yeah. And otherwise, with all of these games, right? Like it was easy to because of the 5-game start to the season and all the points that they were racking up and everything there, to maybe kind of forget about this a little bit. But remember, coming into the season, we just wanted competitive hockey games. Just want them to go out there with effort, all that kind of stuff, play competitively. And, they're still managing to do that through at times, at least tonight. I think they can definitely get back on track there. One thing that I want to talk to you about here towards the end, RJ, Lane Lambert and his use of timeouts, because we've seen it in back-to-back games right now. I love it. Like he does seem to recognize when the team needs a timeout. He's not afraid to call the timeout. He's not worried about saving a timeout for some weird scenario that's super unlikely to happen at the end of a game if they're able to complete a comeback the way Dan kind of was previously and Dave Haxtell was. He is unafraid to call a timeout and to, as we saw in the Flyers game, at least yesterday, lay into the team about them not doing what they need to be doing. And that has been very refreshing to see. I was going to say cool to see, but it's been refreshing, we'll say, to see a coach really kind of take these games seriously and treat them seriously and fight himself, right? Like that's one of the few things that Lane Lambert can do to show effort and a desire to win in a game. He can't go out there and win a puck battle, right? But he can call a timeout and actively try to manage the game, mitigate any momentum that's against his guys, and get his guys motivated to go out there and continue to play.
Exactly. And I love seeing that from him. There's a reason I made it like a third of my post-game debrief after the last game, because that's just something that you wouldn't really see from Dave Haxtell or from Dan Bilesma in those key moments. And it just makes me think of that time in the training camp, or a couple times really, where he was asked about accountability. And he said that how you enforce accountability is when you see something going wrong, you don't let it go. Whether that's in a drill, as we've seen him stop drills like very early on because guys weren't doing it right, or within a game when his team's kind of getting off the rails. He puts a stop to it, just says, stop it, talks to the guys and sends that message. And so love seeing that from the coach. I was going to say, hope that continues. Hope there aren't situations where it needs to
Yeah.
continue, but it shows me that he's thinking the right way.
I hope it continues in situations where it's appropriate.
There you go. Yes. Well said.
That's what we go with. Random Vengeance asking, is it too early to panic? And this is an interesting question because I think it really comes down to what your personal expectations are for the team. If your personal expectation was that they would lose 5 or less games in regulation this year, yeah, it's probably time to panic. If your expectation was you just wanted to watch more competitive games than last season, I don't think it's time to panic, right? They're dealing with injuries right now. They've been on the road for a long period of time at this point. In my opinion, there's not too much to panic about. And like I said, I would withhold panic until they get home and one of McCann or Montour returns to the lineup. If they continue to kind of have the effort issues and they're losing puck battles and they're going through periods like the second period tonight where they just cannot generate a shot to save their lives, and Brandon Montour's in the lineup or Jared McCann's in the lineup and you're playing at home, that's when I start kind of panicking. But right now, I think that there's enough that you can kind of point to and kind of say, this is what's going on with the team right now. And while it's not great, and I certainly want to see them, fight harder and do that kind of stuff, I can understand it and excuse it for the moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you 100% on that. I need to see more in terms of when we have more players, and it just depends on your expectations, right? I'd say even you could start to panic a little bit if your expectation was this is going to be a playoff team and this needs to be a playoff team. But I just don't think that was anybody's expectation for the team this year. I think they're certainly still on the path to just playing more competitive games and, meeting the expectations that everybody seems like is kind of set.
Yeah. Yeah. Edward saying definitely look better than they did at this point last season. That is very true.
Same number of points.
It's true. It feels very different, doesn't it?
We forget that last year's Kraken team started pretty hot because they were scoring a bunch of goals before teams adjusted to the way that they were creating offense.
Yeah. Jason asking, is it too early to declare Lane a good hire? I don't totally think so, that it's too early, just in the sense that what did the Kraken need more than anything? They needed culture and accountability and all of those things that we talked about kind of endlessly these last 2 seasons. And he pretty much brought it immediately, right? In my mind, is Lane Lambert the coach that takes this team to the promised land? No, probably not. This is the get right coach where you build up the culture and you put your young players in a position where they've learned the fundamentals, they've learned what it takes to win in the National Hockey League, and then the next coach is the guy that's supposed to take you all the way.
Yeah, and so for that sense, I think we probably can say Lane's a good hire at this point because of how much he's done so quickly. And if things really do go off the rails at this point, I'm thinking worst case scenario, right? We just don't see good effort the rest of the season. It was just kind of this 5-game aberration. I think you could still say it was a good hire because that's taught you so much about this group of players heading into an offseason where a lot of guys' contracts are expiring that, yeah, for sure then this is a group that can't listen to anybody and you got to kind of make major changes from a roster perspective. Yeah. So you're even covered against the bad situation. I feel like at this point you can say, yeah, Lane Lambert was a good hire.
Yeah, I think so as well. Stratic, my expectations is that younger players, Maddie and younger, get opportunities and do well with them. So far, pretty good. That is true. I mean, that's I think definitely what he's doing at this point. And then, looking ahead to that Winnipeg game, Jen, Fleury versus Fleury, though, that is true. Fleury brothers might be playing against each other there. Terrible Lotus, a flurry of flurries, even, and then Kylie, a flurry of flurries fighting for Fury. Oh, I was able to do it. I didn't think I was going to be able to say that fast.
Nailed the tongue twister. Boom.
There we go.
Try harder, maybe we should hope. Yeah, maybe we should hope it's not Fleury versus Fleury, though.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Zoe Faceoffs, is this the reason that Stevenson gets played so much? At what point do we focus on making other young players better at faceoffs? They are working on the faceoffs, and Maddie is taking a big step forward this year in faceoffs. At least it seems that way. Eye test wise, he looks far more competitive on the dot. And early on, at least through the first 2 games was the last time I checked, his faceoff numbers were a lot better than they were in the past. He's dipped now in the last little bit. He was down to 44% coming into tonight. I could see what he did tonight if you give me a second. But faceoffs are something that's being worked on with the younger guys. It's one of the things that Jess Campbell's actually been working on with the guys during practices.
And face-offs, it really does take a lot of time. There is a legitimate veteran advantage in the NHL for
Yeah.
face-offs, and it's just so rare to see guys that are under 23 do really well in the dot. It's just going to take time with those guys.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to play Stevenson over them just for the sake of face-offs, but as
Right.
far as the face-offs themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And Byron asking in your the doomsday scenario that you talked about there, RJ, trade Maddie or Shane at that point. I that's
Well,
that's a longer
it
conversation
is
for
a longer
another day. I do
conversation,
have
which
thoughts.
yeah, which I mean, that's a conversation that we can have if you want on the Armchair GM stream this month. So
Or even live game commentary in 2 days. I think
that's true. We can
during
have
an
the start of that
intermission or something
conversation.
we can have there, but, like, TLDR, I think if things continue to go wrong and there's issues, I think at some point you have to consider a Shane trade where it just player just needs a fresh start somewhere else with a team that's gonna be in a spot to give him a proper chance. Because right
Yeah.
now, the Kraken just kinda aren't.
No, they really are not giving him a proper chance. And I mean, I brought up the Berkeley Cat and Shane Wright ice time comparison thing over the course of their early career to start this one off. I think, yeah, Shane needs more opportunity. And so that's
And it's
only in the doom scenario,
Yeah,
but
and
you should look
especially
at
if you
it.
think that Jake O'Brien's 2 years away, right?
Yeah.
That he plays well this year, OHL, AHL next year, and then needs time. Uh,
Yeah.
Too many centers.
Although the biggest reason really for Wright, I think too, is that you should be trying to trade for a real difference maker this offseason, regardless of what
Yeah,
happens this season. And Shane's probably
he's
the
a key
piece
piece
that
for that.
could make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to leave everybody on the downer that's that for,
I
the end
know.
of the post game for the week
Here,
or
let
anything.
me grab Fuji
Yeah.
and cheer everyone
Uh,
up.
I will say this though, to answer your like kind of follow up there, Viren, if you think that they're that fundamentally flawed, they are not the individuals that we would think are fundamentally flawed with this team if things go wrong this year.
It's the rest of the group. Yeah.
It is, yeah, there definitely other people that would be the problem, not those two guys. So I do want to put everybody at ease. Nothing that this team has struggled with in the past is because of Maddie or Shane at all. All right. Let's see here. I want to wish Lindsay good luck. We got Fuji here. Get the vibes right. We got all root for the pineapples tonight for Lindsay. As Lindsay's off to her hockey game, and then Fuji here making an appearance. Okay. It's pretty good camera time for him on the desk.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for this evening's post game live. I want to thank everybody for joining us so much. Can't wait to see a lot of you on Patreon over this Thursday for that Winnipeg game. Reminder, if you're not a member of the Patreon, you can sign up for a free 7-day trial and join us for that live game commentary. And if you time it right, I think you'll be able to get in the Armchair GM stream and the prospect chat next week as well. I think everything kind of
Yes.
lines up on the 7-day trial there. So
Yeah, it's all a week apart.
pretty good option there. Just saying if you want to check it out. And then one more time, I want to thank a wonderful sponsor, Queen Anne Beerhall. Again, Kraken are going to be coming back soon, playing games at Climate Pledge Arena. You can either pregame for a lot cheaper than it's going to be to pregame at Climate Pledge during warmups, or after the game, you can walk on down there and enjoy that $5 post-Kraken game smash burger down there at the wonderful Queen Anne Beerhall. So thanks to them for sponsoring. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you all next time.